And welcome back in another edition, Stripe Show podcast. Thank you for making us part of your day, PGA Championship week. We're all over the place. Great lineup this week, but I've been looking forward to this one, catching up with this guy next to me here over there in England. Just finished up at the Belfry, the British Masters on the European Tour. Nice little finish. Had the lead going into Sunday. Finished T11, two-time winner on the European Tour. Eddie Pepperell, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Travis. Thanks for having me on. And I had a disappointing final day last Saturday. I wasn't at my best. It's fair to say. But as you mentioned, some better stuff and some encouraging signs. I would put it that way.
Yeah. Well, hey, you stepped aside so Richard Bland could get in and get his first win. I mean, that's very noble of you, and I'm sure he appreciated that. But that had to be pretty cool, right? I mean, this is a guy that's been at this for a long time, 478 starts. He's 48 years of age. I think I read he turned pro in 1996. I was a freshman in college. I mean, this guy's been at it for a while, and he gets his first win. That had to be a pretty cool moment there.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, when a guy wins who's that old, I always love it just because it shows what a great game golf is, first and foremost. All the talk of these young guys who hit the ball 320 yards through the air, and then you get guys like Richard Bland or Lee Westwood or whoever it might be, Jimenez. Golf is still first and foremost a game of skill. And, Richard Bland ultimately over 4 days showed that he had more skill than the rest of us last week, regardless of age. And the thing with Rich, I mean, I've played with him a few times over the years. In fact, I played with him when I first came out on a couple of kind of one-day events. And I always thought he was such a really, really good and competent golfer. I mean, no weaknesses, really nice technique, and odd and striking, given that some of the players you see win on tour, even fairly regularly, you think, crikey, how have they done that? And then you get guys like Richard, who looks to me like he does everything very well and hasn't won. So it's winning obviously is a bit of a strange cat in and of itself, and you require a little bit of luck always to win. But it's a bit of a surprise he hadn't won before. But he's a very good player, and it was good to see.
Yeah, what's funny is I followed you on Twitter, of course, where you're very funny and popular. But I actually met you through Instagram through your dogs. Gus and Pip, right? You have a account there where your dogs do, and it's called Gus and Pip the Pointers. And you reached out to me, and I was like, "No, wait, okay, so this is Eddie, or this is the dogs, or who's typing this?" And that's how we met. And then, we kind of stayed in touch and worked on getting this done. But you got two cool dogs. Tell us about them.
Yeah, that's just my burner account. I like to troll people from. They're well, I've never been into Instagram. I haven't got the face for it, or the body. And so I, when we got our second dog, me and my girlfriend decided we should maybe do the thing that seemingly everyone who owns two dogs does, and set up an account. So we and it's funny for me because I rarely go on Instagram, but I just found you through the search page. I think your post about Rory McIlroy, which I thought was a really fantastic post, and the face-on images you showed of him at Impact from, I want to say, a couple of years ago to him now, and described how he's had how potentially that was the reasoning behind his struggles with his iron play. I thought it resonated with me because I've seen something fairly similar with my own game, and that kind of movement pattern develop in my own swing, which I know has really caused me a lot of aggravation over the last couple of years, specifically with my irons. So that was why I obviously contacted you just to say, hey, great post, and sent you some photos of me as well. So yeah.
So it's all coming full circle now. So the great play, you're back playing well from the post about Rory McIlroy getting back and covering it. And I got a lot of feedback from that post because it's like, is that really what it is? I'm like, I don't know what Rory's working on. I don't know Rory. I mean, I know his coach Pete a little bit. I've met Rory. I'm actually played in a Pro-Am with him years ago, but we don't stay in touch. It was just an observation of when he was rolling really well versus, his recent struggle, which he clearly is out of that now after winning over here in the States. But it's pretty evident, guys, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Guys who start going after more distance with a driver, they'll back up some, not always, but you see it a lot. where the players take on more side bend to the right. I was just talking with Paul Tesori, the caddy for Webb. That was something he went through. I hear it all the time, and you could really see it with Rory. He was more back. He wasn't on top of it, rotating. And what a difference just going to that fade. So it's cool to see that that's something that sounds like with your game that you think about quite often as well, perhaps with the irons.
Yeah, well, I mean, interestingly with me, that didn't really come about for me through chasing distance. I remember for me a few years ago, I had a problem where my arms went from being quite deep in my backswing through 2017, 2018 to all of a sudden, quite randomly, creeping quite high and in front of me at the top of my backswing through 2019. And so then when, as a player, even if you don't see that, you certainly feel it, and you try to create the depth on the downswing. And I was forever coming up with these drills in an attempt to create some depth artificially on the downswing so that then I could rotate into the ball, cover it, and create a quite passive, consistent release. But ultimately for me, I found it impossible. And the only way I could eventually get there was to, from the top, bump my hips, bump my legs, and ultimately then they're shifting in front of your upper body, and the upper body tips as a consequence. So, it was a bit of a different story for me, how I ended up in a similar position to Rory. But nonetheless, I've ended up there. And as a consequence, you have a slightly higher left shoulder at impact. Not everything's aligned, and the release becomes too flippy, and you lose the control with your mid-irons, short mid-irons, which I still don't care what anybody says. If you're not on point with your 9, 8, 7, 6 iron, you're going to struggle to shoot 6, 7, 8 under par, and therefore you're going to struggle to win golf tournaments. So there's such a crucial element to the game, and you got to get it right. But ultimately, you've got to get it from a deep position. I think with Rory, I've never seen his backswing. His backswing has changed, evolved over the years, and occasionally it floats across the line. But what he does such a great job of is maintaining the depth, doesn't he, in transition, so that he can afford himself to rotate real hard onto the ball. So it's no surprise to see he's fixed that pretty quickly, because it never looked like it was that far away to me with him.
Yeah, and there's some players that's just the way they learned how to play. Like they, like a Stuart Sink, Phil Mickelson, these guys, upright nature, they kind of carry that lead wrist down extension, and then they kind of, that's what they've done their whole career. So they know how to time it. But when you're a player who maybe kind of falls into that late in your career, that can be problematic. And I think with Rory, he's clearly cleaned it up as he approaches the PGA Championship. Yeah. Eddie, your best year, a lot of stuff that I want to ask you. Your best season, you won twice, 2018 on the European Tour. You were 6th in the Open Championship that year. How close is your game, do you feel like right now, perhaps, to when you were really rolling and clipping off some W's there in 2018?
I think I don't know. I mean, at times it feels like it's there, and then at times it feels like it's a long way. I think for me, what I've noticed of late, certainly this year, is I've been trying to find the thing that glues my sequencing together, and I've very rapidly in rounds lost it. And I hate that, because it shows a real lack of resilience and robustness, which I think great technique ultimately is the teller of. It's how robust is your swing under tournament pressure through 18 holes, and mine simply hasn't been. So I think I've got a fair way to go. But the thing with me is, the last 18 months, as it's been strange for everyone during the pandemic, for me in particular, I found it to be far from ideal. I just haven't seen, and I haven't exposed my game enough competitively. I haven't had that kind of feedback loop, where you play 1-2 events, you look at your game, and you reflect and you move forward. But now that I'm beginning to get that back, I suspect and I hope that I'll get it, frankly, better pretty quickly. So it's tough to say, isn't it? I don't think I'm far away at all, but there's the odd shot in there, which still is a bit. For me, in 2018, what I had going for me was I had a strong shot pattern, and I very rarely hit the ball left. I built that into my game and took that through the beginning of 2019. And at times it infuriated me that I could barely draw the ball, but in hindsight, it was a blessing that I could never hit it left. And so there's so much to be said for an imperfect game, but one that takes one side of the course out of play, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you don't want to get ahead of yourself, even when you're like trending, right? It's like, yeah, it's pretty good. I'm just, you don't want, it's one day at a time. It's a funny game that way, because you can feel so good, have a good warm up, go in and shoot, a couple over par. It's like, where did that come from? So there's no guarantees in the game.
No, and that's funny. I've always felt, for me, I've played my best off kind of an average warm up. The kind of warm up where you've you have a feel where if you fully commit to, you hit the perfect golf shot, but you hit the occasional one that's poor. And so you go out to that course knowing with absolute certainty, this is the feel I need to commit to on every single shot. And those invariably are the days where I think you play your best. If you go out there flushing it on the range, you can become complacent and overconfident, which is never a good thing.
Rapsodo mobile launch monitor. Improve your golf swing today. Pro level launch data in the palm of your hand. It is very accurate, within 2% of a $20,000 unit. The Rapsodo MLM app automatically tracks stats and stores video with Shot Tracer, helpful for club gapping and understanding true distances for each club. Rapsodo MLM provides immediate feedback, data, and creates a better practice environment, not mindlessly hitting balls. Extremely portable. Case is about the size of a rangefinder. And you know what? You can use it both indoors and outdoors. I love this launch monitor. It's the Rapsodo mobile launch monitor. Check it out at rapsodo.com, rapsodo.com, rapsodo.com. I got to ask you, you tweeted this a while back, confirm this. So when you finished sixth in the Open, you were slightly hungover on the final day when you shot 67. Is that right?
Well, I woke up hungover. I mean, though I had a bad Saturday, I still had a fairly late tee time. I think it was in the 12th or 11th hour of the day. So I had enough time to recover a little bit. But, thing is, it wasn't that uncommon of me back then. I wouldn't drink a lot, but I would certainly have 2 or 3 glasses of wine, maybe, certainly on a night where, and that Saturday I had a bad finish. I want to say I finished bogey or bogey 2 at the final 3 holes and really felt disappointed. And I lost my chance to win the Open. And I felt confident enough that I could win the Open off the back of a great result the week before. So, there was a bit of disappointment, and I did the honourable British thing, and that is straight to the bottle. Yeah.
Let me ask you. So, on the European tour, you've been over there for a while now. Of course, that's where you live. You play the European tour full time, but you've been over here in the States too. You had a nice run there. Speaking of, after the Open in 19, you were 3rd at the Players, right here in my backyard, the TPC. 51st of the Masters. I think you played in the RBC. You had a top 20 at the Heritage there. So you've been over here, you've roamed around PGA Tour in the States, obviously the European Tour. Give me, and the audience, just a little feel, I don't know, the tone, the environment, the attitude, just the difference between the PGA Tour and the European Tour, and spending time on both.
I think the events are definitely bigger and better in America, in my experience. But one thing we have in Europe is I think this makes a big difference. In America, you arrive, you pick up your car. It's the first thing you do. And so straight away, every player is kind of separated from one another. And of course, it then, it takes some kind of communication between players to at least stay in the same spot to then create some, an environment where you can at least socialize, let's say. In Europe, it's much different. And in Europe, we get 1 or 2 often, hotels that we generally all kind of stay at. There's usually courtesy cars or even buses. So straight away, there's an environment that's, created whereby you just see more of one another. And naturally, that creates more of a kind of a camaraderie, if you like, but certainly a companionship at times. So I think there's that, which plays a big role, Travis. And, it's other than that, I don't know. There isn't really much of a major difference. I mean, everyone's still very focused at all times. But the younger generation, as you might expect, are generally more professional. They don't tend to, we don't tend to do the things that, pros of yesteryear may have done.
Right.
So there's that as well.
Right. If I was to come to Europe, and there they are right there. There's Gus and Pip in the background. They knew we were talking about them earlier. If I was to come to Europe, and I was going to kind of roll. We had a week off, right? And we were going to go play some golf, have a good time. Who would you recommend? 1 or 2 guys that we were going to go out, have a nice steak or something, some wine, fun night, good conversation. Who are those 2 guys that I need to hook up with? Obviously, beside yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you'll have a good time if you spend some time with Marcus Armitage. I would say, you'll he's He's an interesting guy. He's pretty out there. Funny, doesn't take himself seriously at all, as I'm sure you are aware if you've seen some of his stuff. Jamie Donaldson, he's a good character. Very fun character, I will say. But other than that, I can't think of any others. I mean, to be honest, they're slipping my mind. But those two guys, you'd certainly find yourself laughing.
No, of course I would. I'd be hanging with you as well. And you like red wine? Like, give us, kind of an idea. What wine are you like? You kind of like a cab guy? You Pinot Noir? What is it?
I'm, as the time has gone on, I'm almost just always Bordeaux now, and it's when I started drinking wine, I remember thinking, new world, old world, you tried all. I thought I loved Malbec, and then as I managed to have a bit more success, and fortunately enough try better and better wines, I discovered that actually the wines from Bordeaux, generally speaking, did enough for me. So the lower alcohol content, I think, goes better with me with the red wine, and anything from Bordeaux, generally speaking, is a winner for me.
Yeah, let's go back to the golf game here for a second. This is a distance era that we're in. All the discussion, roll it back, do this, do that. Bryson, obviously, he's been on the forefront. He's changed his body. He's getting amped up like he's ready to run into a WWF wrestling ring to hit the ball as hard as he can. Is the distance as big of a topic over there with players and the rollback and things like that as it is over here in the States?
I don't know. Possibly not, to be honest. For we don't have characters like Bryson, obviously, over here. But, I've been trying to think a little bit about it and imagine what would happen if we did roll the ball back. I think we could all agree, regardless of whether the ball was rolled back or not, there's definitely been a paradigm shift in favor of hitting the ball further. Gone are the days of believing that to be the best player in the world, you need to be the best putter. It's now hit the ball a long way, first and foremost. And so I think as long as that paradigm shift remains, and I can't see it not, that you're going to have a breed of young players come through who are trying to hit the ball further. That being said, in my opinion, if the ball does get rolled back, and this is where the governing bodies could maybe, it could be quite interesting, is I always think with golf, and this is the beauty of golf, you have the relationship, the dichotomy between being a great driver of the ball and being a great mid-iron player. It seems to me that those are two opposite ends. It's very, very difficult. In fact, I would argue I don't know of a single player in history who have mastered both of those things. I think of great mid-iron players, and generally speaking, I don't think they're tremendous drivers of the ball. And I think of great drivers of the ball, and generally, I think they struggle with the mid-iron. So if the governing bodies can find a way of creating the optimal kind of circumstances whereby enough tournaments, we create these conditions where you still got plenty of drivers, but enough 6, 7, 8 irons, then I think you're going to get enough diversity in terms of winners that the game will still be interesting. But it's a difficult thing to achieve, isn't it? And I don't know how it happens, but that's certainly what I would hope would happen. Personally. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about this guy, Garrick Hugo. He's won a couple times, right, over there on the European tour. And I watch you guys in the morning. It's quite popular over here in the States. We get to get up, we get to watch the European tour and yourself and play. And then of course that kind of transitions into the final round or the round on the PGA tour in the afternoon. But I've been watching Garrick, lefty.
Yeah.
Young South African player. I've been telling everybody here, is like, man, this kid is good. I mean, he's long, he can putt. How good is he? You've seen him firsthand.
Yeah, I played with him in Tenerife, I think a few weeks ago when he won. He's really very good. As you say, he drives the ball exceptionally well. What impressed me probably most was his short game and his touch around the greens. He's the perfect modern player. He drives the ball 320. And he's got a lovely touch around the greens, and he's good on the greens. He hit a lot of, I would say, average iron shots. But again, to the point I just made, in the modern game, there's not many mid-iron shots you've got to hit. So, he's got the perfect game for it. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him kind of crack it even in the States, to be honest. He seems to have a very good attitude. He seems very level-headed. I don't think he's going to be too overawed by whatever environment he finds himself playing in. So, a very exciting young player for sure.
Who was your idol growing up? golfers, guys that you kind of looked up to when you were a young man?
Well, obviously I grew up watching Tiger win everything, which was great, but I loved Sergio. Sergio was always the guy I found myself rooting for. I loved the way he played. Something about Sergio that's always just attracted me to him, to be honest. And yeah, just a great ball striker, great iron player.
Yeah, it's playoff time. Big stakes, bigger promotions. It's time to hammer the over and score some cash. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you a chance to lower the over-under on a featured playoff game. All players who place a bet on the featured basketball game will have a hand in lowering the over-under on the game. That's right. For every 1,500 players who bet the over on the select game, the over-under will drop by 1 point. Every bettor who hammers the over in the featured game helps to lower the game's over-under. The best part is that even as the line lowers, the odds remain at even money. That's right. You can double your money by hammering the over. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your funds at your convenience. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Travis when you sign up to hammer the over. For every 1,500 people that bet the over in the featured game, the line will decrease by 1 point. Yes, this is your chance to improve the odds of the over hitting. So tell your friends and family, this is a team effort. Hammer the over and improve your odds of doubling your money. That's promo code Travis for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Yeah, and he's in great shape right now. Geez, I've been watching him. I think this is the best shape he's been in his entire career right now. Definitely put on some muscle. And hitting the ball is not Sergio's issue, right? I mean, he's still one of the premier ball strikers in the game. You look at some of these English players here. Justin Rose is in the field, and Fleetwood, Tommy Fleetwood. You played a fair amount of golf with Fleetwood, haven't you?
Yeah, I played a lot with Tommy growing up. He's always been a very, very good player. I mean, he lost his way a little bit a few years ago, but he came back with a bang. He seems to be going through a little bit of an interesting spell for him. I think, he was kind of on the brink of really, really breaking through, wasn't he? I mean, he is world class, but you say breaking through in terms of winning majors, and he just seems to have fallen the other side of, of that line at the moment. But it's tricky, isn't it? He's never far away. He's such a great swinger of the club, but maybe the putter might be his Achilles heel relative to the best players in the world. But he's still an exceptional golfer. Yeah,
it's funny in the golf gambling is really taken off, and the guys that you can certainly bet on the European Tour, you can bet on the PGA Tour, you can bet on the Korn Ferry Tour now. It's funny over here in the States, like the gambling contingency, they love Fleetwood. I mean, they love him. Like they're just, he's right there. He's right on the brink. He's gonna, it's like, and he has gone through this little spell of sorts. He played good last week, and certainly coming in, and his short game looks like it's on point. And we know his iron game is usually pretty polished. As a player over there in Europe, how big is this gambling on tournaments yourself, head-to-head matchups, winning top 20s, all these different things that you can do? How much do you think about that? Is that even discussion in the locker room as a player?
Well, no, it's not, because we get banned if we're not allowed to do it, and even our families aren't allowed to do it. So it's we never really talk about it. But obviously, Britain, probably more than America, but certainly as much, I would imagine, is a huge gambling addiction, you might even call it. Certainly interest. And golf, from what I understand, and I've never gambled, so I don't really know the intricacies, but from what I hear, golf is a great sport to bet on. There's so much opportunity, there's so much nuance in the game. So it's, I suppose, monetarily and financially, for people like myself who play it professionally, it's good, but I always feel a little bit I never really want to say that, because I know that people are gambling their savings away, and so act responsibly. Yes.
You don't want to be gambling your savings away, but it's taken off. Fantasy golf's huge, but just more of that, him to win, top 20. It's the in game that's going to be huge, where odds are changing after every hole, and that's what's going to really, I think, take off eventually. You can only, I think, like DraftKings Sportsbook's only available in 6 states right now here. So there's a ways to go.
Yeah.
But you can certainly see the steps being taken as a business. So for you, Eddie, what's the next step for you? Your career, obviously full-time there in the European tour. Do you have aspirations to come over here and play more? Just kind of, what's the next 5 years look like for you as a professional golfer?
It's really tricky to say. I mean, there's obviously still a lot up in the air. I mean, you guys are well, I would say, thankfully taking a slightly different approach to the whole COVID pandemic in the moment than we are. I mean, things are still very uncertain over here with regards to that. Travel seems to be a big uncertainty. But in terms of my game, I feel like there's a bit of a restarting of my career. It's it kind of stopped over the last 12 months. So I'm looking forward to getting back underway in many ways. I think the big thing for me this year is to play a lot of golf, play in Europe, and just try and get back on the horse competitively and rebuild my game back to where I believe it can be and should be. So once that happens, then yeah, like in a few years ago, the opportunity might present itself, and it probably would, to go to America and play the majors and some of the WGCs and the odd event here and there, like I did in 2019. The thing with me is I don't see myself ever living in the US, so it would be difficult to imagine me playing in America full time. But again, that has a number of I should never say never, and there's another number of options on that front. So who knows, Travis? But I think for me right now, it's playing a lot of golf in Europe and just really nailing that kind of competitiveness and learning and getting a bit better again.
Yeah. So over in Europe, the pandemic, of course, a little bit different than just even in the States over here, and how, from state to state, it's being handled. Canada, even some even more lockdown up there, just north of our border, than what's happening here. Living in Florida, we've kind of continued to live our life, obviously with caution, but it's been a little bit more open here than certainly other states and other parts of the country. Let me take you to your Twitter here. At Pepperell Eddie, you're pretty good at Twitter, Eddie. I don't know if you know that, but it's been fun following you. What do you like about the old Twitterverse? When you pick up the phone and send something, anything really strike fire inside there?
I mean, some people it's pretty. It doesn't cost a lot to pay somebody to do your Twitter for you. I used to do it more than I think the pandemic brought the tone down a little bit for me. But once that moves on, then maybe I'll rediscover some humor. But I've never taken myself overly serious. So I think that kind of translates a little bit across to my Twitter. But much of what I say on there historically should be taken as a joke. I would say that.
Well, as you said in the pandemic, it's kind of taught you, just be candid and you don't give a shit, right? Like, you just put it out there. This is how I feel, and it's not for everybody. If you don't like it, then you unfollow, and if you like it, then you follow, right? That's kind of how Twitter should be, and it's refreshing. I think that's maybe why we were drawn to each other, because I don't take myself that seriously either, and I think as you put things out there, you kind of find, wow, that dude's really serious, or he needs to chill out a little bit, because man, it don't take much, and all of a sudden you got a firestorm on Twitter, but you're really good at it. Yeah.
I've gotten away with some stuff over the years. And I've had phone calls and I've had emails from people very high up at the European Tour, and my stomach has dropped on one occasion. So, I've never always gotten it right. And I think over time, as I look back, I'll certainly realize that. Having said that, it's often just an attempt at humor and nothing more than that. And you'll get it wrong sometimes, and sometimes you'll get it right. And that is what it is. And, I'm reminded of the Ricky Gervais line from his stand-up in, I think it's Humanity, where he says, his rule with his brother was win, lose, or draw. You say it, win, lose, or draw. And I think once you take that step, and I've taken that step enough times on my Twitter, it just becomes the norm for you. And I think that's where maybe I do differ from most, in fact, probably all other golfers, certainly, and indeed other sports people. I've crossed that line enough that now there isn't no line for me, and people know that. But I think also, in a way, you know, that helps the other guys because they can kind of fall into my slipstream a little bit, and it, you know, it kind of opens it up. But yeah, you know, but we'll see. I'm probably overthinking it.
Well, we need to get you on Instagram more because it's a little safer play in Instagram. You know, it's not as, you know, liquid where it's just boom, 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 boom. You know, you kind of have to, it's more formulated. You only post once or twice. You have your story, which is fun. Now, that's kind of where I run my business. And
yeah, well, I see the thing is with that is I think I would, you know, for me, it's do you want to be on Instagram and have an eating disorder, or Twitter and have depression and psychosis? And I would always choose the latter. So, you know, I never want to jeopardize my relationship with food and wine.
That's well said. I don't think I can. I'm not even going to attempt to elaborate on that. Instead, I'm going to transition to the PGA Championship and finish up with this. Any leans here? You got any names for me? I don't gamble my savings away, but I am in the gambling space. So I'm going to write down these picks that are coming from Eddie Pepperell here for the PGA Championship. Yeah.
So a few things. So I just saw the leaderboard from 2012 on Twitter, and I want to say there was 6 Europeans in the top 10 or top 12.
Yes.
Which is interesting. I saw the weather forecast from Paul McGinley posted, and it was light to kind of, you know, lightish winds. So we're not going to expect anything too crazy on the breeze front. I mean, I played with Sam Horsfield last week, and he said that he was at Cure last week, and he said the course was absolutely brutal in the wind. So I think, you know, John Rahm said it lends itself to great ball striking. You've got to look for the great ball strikers to me. I think you've got to look at some of the European guys as well on that front. So Rory clearly coming into form, Sergio, John Rahm, Tommy, mentioned him already.
Yep.
Wouldn't be surprised to see him there or thereabouts. But
I kind of like Matt Wallace.
Yeah, Matt's been playing great, hasn't he? Yeah, and he would be a very good shout for sure. And I think the fact that it's open and exposed and the wind might pick up a little bit, you've got to look for guys who can flight the golf ball ultimately. And, you know, you're looking for some good ball striking and some you know, flary type players. But names, it's always difficult to say. I mean, I've mentioned a lot of it. That's a very Eurocentric view there, wasn't it? But hey, you know,
that's good.
That's what you've got me on for, right?
Yeah, that's right. I love this. This is what it's about. It's funny you say all this because I thought the same thing when I looked at 2012, and I really like Matt Wallace. I mean, he's been playing brilliant over here in the States. And what a beautiful swing too. It's been fun here this spring watching him again. I forgot just how fluid and just terrific his golf swing is. It's been really cool to watch. I have Matt Wallace over Tommy Fleetwood in a head-to-head. So anyway, perhaps that's just me lashing out to the industry and their love for Fleetwood, because I love Fleetwood too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd love to have a glass of wine with Tommy too. I mean, he seems like he's a terrific guy. And Shane Lowry, I think, is a little bit of a sleeper. You know, a sleeper.
That's a fair
dude
point.
Is the best, isn't he? Shane Lowry's a great dude.
Yeah, he is. He's a good guy. Yeah, good guy. He's Irish. You know, generally speaking, rule of thumb, Irish are the best people on the planet. So,
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I did it after he won the Open. I drove down to. This was right before COVID started. I met him for a Golf Digest shoot down in PGA National, and we did a shoot. And I spent the day with him and interviewed him for Digest. And God, he was just like he was exactly what I thought he would be. You know, I mean, just a funny, fun, lighthearted guy. And we just had like the best day, and it was because of him. I mean, he just made the whole atmosphere really, you know, really comfortable to be around. This is a guy, you know, he just won the Open. Well, he just didn't. Just at that point, he was the Open champion. So anyway, these Irish, these guys they're the real deal. They're fun to be around. Yeah,
they are. And he's a real shot maker, so I wouldn't at all be surprised, especially if the wind got up a little bit, to see someone like him. Mind you, it's a long course, isn't it? So driver is going to still be a very important club. So it's going to test everything. So who knows? There's a lot of very brilliant golfers on that golf course. So it's really impossible to say, I would imagine.
You know, another Irish guy that maybe you probably know is Paddy, right? Harrington. And so that's one guy that I've wanted to get to know, because he is a deep thinker on the golf swing, and he posts his videos on Instagram. That's why you got to come on there and watch. And he's just a tinker, and he has all these thoughts and ideas, and I want to get him on, and I want to pick his brain about all of these things that go through his head about full swing and short game and all these things. He's just a trip. I love following him and listening to him.
Yeah, he said something so good once when I was an amateur. We had a day with him for some Walker Cup training, and he said something that I'll never forget, and I'll remember even more because even he couldn't stick to the very thing he said. And he said, your ability to do the mundane day in, day out will determine how good you become. I remember he said that. I wrote it down and I thought, wow, that seems quite profound. And as I've gotten older, I've thought that's absolutely spot on. As you play this game more and more, what works, but it's your ability to keep doing it and not get too bored by it and just keep doing it. But it does become mundane. And here's a guy who couldn't achieve the very thing that he had worked out. And I thought that's golf in a nutshell. He described the beauty of the game and yet the difficulty of the game all in itself. And is someone who has figured it out and kind of at the same time, not, if you know what I mean, not that in a critical way, but it's just, you forget what you learn. And he's brilliant. I've always loved playing with Paddy, for sure.
Yeah, he's on my list. He's on the short list for me. If I had to come over like that, I want to hang with that guy. But he's, he obviously he's over here a lot too. But anyway, with Paddy, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on another Irish player. Anyway, I'll come back to it. Eddie, PGA Championship, got the Open Championship coming up, U.S. Open next month, and then the Open Championship after that. So right now, your status of getting into one of those two, how does it look?
Well, it's possible for both. We have like a mini order of merit over here going for the US Open. Having said that, as strange as this might sound, even if I qualified for the US Open, I'm not entirely convinced I would travel to play in it because I have a very busy run after it. And I just have this sense that I need to focus heavily at the moment on all these European events. But that may change. But the Open as well, they've just opened up 2 spots actually at the Scottish Open. So, guys who do very, very well in the Scottish who aren't exempt will get in. So there's an opportunity there. So there's a pathway, but it's limited, it's slim, but we'll see. I got in the Open at Carnoustie through my good finish at the Scottish the week before. And so, good things can obviously happen on that front. And indeed, I would, I'd love to play the Open at St. George's for sure.
Well, you're coming on. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, well, and also they're hoping to have crowds back. That was all I was going to say. But it would be nice. I think if it goes ahead with full crowds in the UK, that the atmosphere will just be absolutely incredible. We haven't had anything here like that. So it would be great if it does go ahead with full crowds.
Yeah, what a difference it's been over here just to see 5,000, 8,000 people all kind of congregating around. It feels like at the PGA, just these practice rounds I was watching, it felt like there was a decent amount of people out there. There was a hockey game, playoff game here last night. It was a full crowd. It was strange to sit there and watch and listen and feel like my hair was standing up. I had goosebumps just feeling the energy actually coming through the TV for the first time in so long. So it's got to be tough as a player. It really does.
Well, sport needs it. I mean, it's not just sport. I mean, this goes back to, when people used to fight in coliseums, this is the whole point. This is performance and you need people, you need atmosphere. And without it, you could have the best performance professionally, but it will have very, very little to no impact because the atmosphere and the crowd makes the event, in my opinion. And we've definitely discovered that during the pandemic. I think if we've discovered one thing, we're desperate for it. I mean, I turned the TV on last week or 2 weeks ago in Spain and the Champions League semi-final was on and Chelsea were playing Real Madrid and they were playing at a training ground in Real Madrid because the Bernabeu was under construction with no crowds. And I thought, here's the Champions League semi-final, which is soccer over here, but soccer in your guys' language, but supposedly two of the biggest teams in the world in front of them. It just felt completely wrong. And, I find it unwatchable. So just to have some crowds back, and I love what's happened in Florida and Texas, what you guys have done, because you've brought that back, and you're frankly, I think, rewarded for it. And I hope we all pull our fingers out and do something similar soon enough, and stop worrying so much.
Yes, that's exactly right. It really is. You got to live, but you got to do it with caution, right? Wear the mask, do your thing. Although it was just lifted here in Florida, but there's still a few places that are doing it. But yeah, it's a real thing. Even Rory talking about it after his win, it just makes sense. I mean, Rory, Tiger, these guys, they're used to playing in front of thousands of people, and all of a sudden there's no one there, and you're looking around, and you're like, damn, I didn't realize that I needed this to actually bring forth my best concentration level and effort, because that's all they know. I mean, that's what they've been doing their whole career. Let me ask you this. Is it, you go back to your comment about what Paddy said to you about being, mundane, and it's kind of boring, isn't it, to being a professional golfer at times, right? I mean, like, you sit there and you're hitting balls and you're doing the same thing over and over and over. Like, it's all about like, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. It's like, and there's no one around, and like you go back to your hotel, and like, it can be kind of lonely, right? Like, you have to really learn to spend time by yourself, both at work and away from work. Yeah. When you're traveling.
Oh, no doubt about it. And it takes a certain type of character. You have to be comfortable in your own mind, and you have to be comfortable dealing with disappointment pretty frequently, because most days on a golf course are going to be frustrating and often disappointing. And you're going to have spells through a career where it's very frustrating and could grind you down. So you've got to be able to deal with that and put that into some kind of perspective. With regards to the boring part, I often think there's this sweet spot where, you may not quite have it, but then you get it, you figure it out, you're working on something for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you reach this kind of sweet spot where your performance is fantastic. You're waking up every morning, you feel very calm because everything you're about to execute, you have complete control over, and it's going to give you a pretty good result. Mm-hmm. And that good result can become a great result if the cards fall the right way, let's say, but you're in complete control, and that sweet spot lasts for different lengths of time for different people, clearly, but that's such a golden spot to live in, and it doesn't, when you lose it, it's very, very difficult to get it back, and it does at some point, although it feels great and you feel comforted by the fact that you're in complete control, it quite quickly does become a bit boring, and you get that sense of where it does become mundane. So you got to try and find a way of freshening it up without losing sight of what you figured out, which is ultimately important. And to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about Pete Cowan with Rory's coach, that was something I've worked with Pete, and it didn't go very well when I worked with Pete, admittedly, but I do think one of Pete's big skills is he has so much knowledge and different feelings that he can give a player, which ultimately trying to achieve the same thing, but gives just this tiny little difference in terms of feel or sensation. And that can, I often describe his coaching as being a bit like the cherry on top of the cake, that makes sense. So you gotta keep sweetening things up a bit.
Who do you work on? Who do you work with now? Do you have any coach or?
Yeah, well, I actually work with Pete's assistant, Mike.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Mike. I've been on and off with Mike for years, and I also work with another guy called, believe it or not, Simon Shanks is his name. So not the best name for a golf coach, but I know, shake it off. But he's. I worked with him a lot through 2018 and a bit through 2019. So no, I work with two coaches. The thing with me is I'm quite individual, and I know I have a pretty strong sense of what I do and don't want to feel and how I want to play the game. I'm a bit of a poison chalice, I think, for a coach, but I seek both their advice, really.
Yeah, the player coach relationship is interesting. I get it all the time. Like, why don't you want to go out there and coach with the players? I ran the TPC Sawgrass Academy forever, and that's kind of my trade is teaching and coaching. And I don't do it as much anymore because of the media platforms, and I enjoy doing this, but it's just not for me. Like, I don't feel like I could get that peace of mind traveling all of the time, working with one or two players. I do some things long distance, but I don't never kind of put myself out there to travel because I just don't feel like, that was for me. And going back to a lot of the things that you were talking about as a player, and the challenges that you have, but man, like Pete Cowan and, Butch and these guys, they have just put in so much time, and I got a lot of respect for him because I know how hard they work out there. And it's a lot of disappointment for the coach too, because it doesn't always work out, with players, and it's really inevitable oftentimes before they get fired. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Yeah, you're dead right. And listen, I mean, believe it or not, you're dealing with a lot of psychopaths. We are not straightforward people, and I recall when I won the British Masters, at the end of 2018, I walked off the course and said to my coach Simon, "Thank you. You've given me some great coaching. I hit a driver at the last, and I said to him, that was because of you. I said, that's great coaching. You've given me a new shot. I've won a golf tournament with that shot. Thank you. It's like that is the ultimate from a coach, in my opinion, and well done." 9 months later, I've left him. And it's like, how do you reconcile those two things if you're a rational mind, if you're a rational person, which coaches invariably are, because they're not, like us, they're not on the course getting frustrated, angry, hacked off, and frankly, just a bunch of little sociopath, monkeys running around throwing clubs. I mean, so it's, yeah, I don't blame you for not wanting to do it. I mean, it's, you're dealing with a bunch of nutters, really.
I just, thank you. I mean, that's it. I mean, I had a couple of players when I was there, and they were a little bit older and whatnot, which is fine because I didn't travel as much with them. But even then it was, I was like, damn, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Like, I kind of find myself thinking about other things and wanting to do other things, this being one of them. I don't think that's fair to the player. And, so it's like, I'm just not wired to be doing that every single day, all day through one or two players. I have a lot of respect for those that do it. And it's amazing the business and where it's going. I'm amazed at the specialization of the sport now. And I was talking with Dr. Brett McCabe on the podcast last week, and he said, Travis, the teams are going to get bigger. The teams for the players are getting bigger. There's going to be an East Coast coach, West Coast coach, coaches that specialize putting in bent, Bermuda. He's like, that's where this is going. I'm just like, damn, that's amazing. To think that all of that specialization is happening. And at the end of the day, though, I still think there's some value in it. But at the end of the day, man, you got to get up. The player has to hit it. Like, I mean, Eddie's got to hit it at some point and find it and react and deal with his emotions. And like, you can talk technique and this and that, but man, it just feels, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to learn. But is it being overdone, from a coaching standpoint? Yeah,
no, it's an interesting concept. I've always found the idea of 1% very interesting. It became a big thing over here when England won the Rugby World Cup in 2003. And we had a coach, Sir Clive Woodward, who really brought the kind of 1% mindset mentality. And one of the coaches in that team was a guy called Dave Allred, who who helped take Luke Donald and Francesco Molinari to really great heights in golf. So clearly there is a role to be played for those types of coaches. But I always maintain that, especially in a game like golf, which is such a skill-based game, you've got to have the first 80 to 85%. And frankly, if you are not in control of the bulk, the majority, that 80%, you can forget about focusing on the 1%. I see guys down the range who might be focusing on the gym or their diet or something like that. And I look at some of the positions they're in their swing, and I think, well, you could eat, you could not eat a piece of sugar. You can not have any sugar for a year, but you're not going to break 70 on the European Tour. It doesn't matter. You might think you're dealing with the 1% or even the 0.5%, but you're not nailing the crucial part of the game that the Tyrrell Hattons get right, that the people like Patrick Reed get right. These guys who may not look like they're focusing always on the 1%, but they're just brilliant golfers, and they're dealing day in, day out with the fundamentals, and you can never, ever, ever lose sight of that. And I really still maintain that if you get the basics right, mostly, and you've got some talent, and you're going to sugarcoat it in a great way, and you're going to have success. But
well, you're the genius. I mean, the player is the genius, and I think there's a lot to the saying of protecting the genius of the player. And I think as a coach, like, that's what I think some players do better than others. I think the method-based coach, like, they kind of get into their own silo of maybe who they could really help because they don't really apply to a lot of others. But the genius of the player and protecting that, and I think that's what Butch and probably some of the most successful teachers have done is, they have a wide range of swings. And I tell like Justin Parsons who's a coach over here, who's from Europe.
Yeah, Irish, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
Irish. Yeah,
Justin
yeah,
Moore.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, he's Irish, and Justin and I are good friends, and I said, like, I'm not blowing any smoke up you. I said, but I appreciate how you go about your craft. You have a wide range of players; they all swing differently, and you can see them moving forward too as players. So to me, that's the essence of coaching, and I think where it's going for the skill of like Justin is he's going to be the head coach. And then there's going to be all this specialization perhaps that's going to start coming underneath it. Very similar to Jamie Mulligan in the way that he runs some of his teams. Luke List is his player and Patrick Cantlay and things like that. So it's fascinating, man. It really is a big business. It's fun to watch. And I know you're busy. I could talk to you forever, Eddie. I mean, I'll go get a bottle of wine right now if you want me to. I mean, it's almost 11 here. I don't care. I have no shame.
No, I've already done half a bottle. Don't worry about it. No, it's really, I'm not. But I'm trying to catch some sun. I mean, we've got that's as much sun as we get in England.
Well, go outside, Eddie. Go outside. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast, man. This has been great.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Good to chat.
I just want to interrupt this interview real quick and give a shout out to my friends over at OnCore Golf. OnCore provides some of the most cutting-edge technology in a golf ball that I have ever seen. Their team in Buffalo, New York is changing the script of golf technology through their perimeter-weighted designs, which offer players enhanced accuracy and control for every shot on the course. With their award-winning Elixir and Avant 55 golf balls, they are transforming the game for players of all skill levels. Visit OnCoreGolf.com/Travis Fulton for more details about their products that are revolutionizing the game. Now back to the Stripe Show.